In hindsight, Khamislav later reasoned that he probably could have taken a different course of action when he reached the outskirts of the coastal town of Bengretin. He had just encountered the most hardened elements of Omnicore SOB and completely annihilated all of them with ninth harmonic astral detonations and an overlapped plethora of interplanar elemental spells that were triggered by interlinked sonic magic that had emanated from Shiloh as Khami deftly strummed rapid sequences of complex chord and variations of sliding technique up what formed one side of the guitar rifle's stock. He was feeling much like he could take on the world tonight, and even though it was self-evident that with the 58 remaining loaded rounds for Shiloh, he had been compelled to use some of the incredibly powerful, ill-gotten musical weapons ammunition en route to collapse a large bridge his pursuers would have used to close the distance on him. This had all taken place before Khamislav had even serendipitously found the rolled-up miniature scroll with the eclectic Middle Gaul/esoteric occultist mystique scribed instructions for detonating the payload with amplified magical waves of sound. As they phased through and collided or recoiled from the preternatural reverberations of the large, heavy projectiles, Shiloh's unique rising action, and the ejected cases. It was only that her strings and rising action had needed oiling that Khamislav had invested the couple of hours that it took to work out the intrinsically difficult mechanism that opened the hexagonal orifice. He decided he would allocate 10 shots to try to determine the precise effect that different chords or riffs would have on Shiloh's payload so that he would be able to the most appropriate type of war song when employing this recently rediscovered method that was described in the footnotes of some of the appropriated encrypted military tablature, briefly as technique de tanique. Khamislav had no wish to bring unwanted attention, but he was on his way to one of the most infamous pirate and outlaw-ridden settlements that the Detosian Empire controlled, at least in theory. So he felt he could justify the risk to learn all he could before negotiating with the locals at the largest drinking and gambling establishment in Bengretin, which was called the Knoll Club, as it was atop the second largest hill in town. The highest hill in Bengretin was occupied by a strange fortress mansion, and only those that had business there knew what would happen to whom, whence and why when it came to that elevated residence. It was the home of Zeninor, a young, upcoming malicious overlord. He had learned of the unfortunate death of his great-uncle Zomi, and although he had despised, undermined and slandered him when he was alive, but the Order of Writ demanded vengeance in such a case before any inheritance could be granted to Zeninor. He had learned that the man who had killed him by chaining him to a 6x6 and dragging him until he fell apart. Jack had arrived by Corsair war barge from Jahani with his relatively new 8x8 armoured car, the replacement for the now much too infamous Dingo he used to drive before the war. Jack had secured a deal at the Knoll Club for 100 kilograms of black swamp tobacco that had been mixed well with premium blackheart mushroom dust, 500 platinum souls. 2 birds with 1 stone, thought Jack eagerly. Just 2 fixes, Othan.